Well, good morning, everybody. This is a very, very good day for us. In fact, it's the best day for ARC shareholders since the day I joined some 5 years ago. The announcement of our agreement with Anglo this morning is a transformational event for us and a real step change in our fortunes, both medium and long term. We are thrilled to be joining up with Anglo, who have one of the most experienced teams with detailed knowledge of this part of northwest Zambia, and which hosts three multi-billion-dollar operating mines in close proximity to us. And our goal is very clear. That is to identify and develop a tier one copper asset. This agreement brings us a lot closer to achieving that goal. As I've always said previously, to do justice to this tenement that we have, some 800 square kilometers, one needs to have significant capital to invest, as well as the expertise to target and develop into something much, much bigger. So while we invested modest amounts of capital with considerable drilling success, to do justice, this needs tens of millions into drilling. And this is exactly what we have with today's agreement. A total of $88.5 million with $14.5 million in cash to ARC, and with almost $75 million going into the ground over some 7 years, which could be expedited if Anglo decide to do that. That's on average circa $10 million per year into exploration into the ground. And that compares to circa about the same $8 million by ARC over 4 years. So, it's a seismic shift. And that's exactly what we need to give justice to what we have here. And we retain, very importantly, a residual stake of 30%, which is very meaningful and gives ARC a meaningful stake in terms of what we hope will be a very large and valuable future copper operation. In respect of timing, we will get to work very quickly and finish off the remaining agreements. And there's a strong desire by all of the signatories to start drilling as soon as possible this year. So I'm very delighted with what we have. We've reached the promised land, as I say, to our colleagues, and the excitement really now is just starting. So with that, Sasha, I'm happy to take any questions. I think there are a number of emailed questions which I received, which I forwarded to Sasha, and they're happy also to take any questions live, so to speak, from the audience that's tuned in. So Sasha, over to you.
Sure, of course, Nick. Yeah, just to a little further on that, there is a Q&A box on your screens. If you're familiar with the Zoom interface, then there's a Q&A box in there. If you post any questions in there, then we'll be able to. I see they're starting to come through already. Yep. So some of you have found that box. Please don't put it in the chat box because we can only really monitor one box. Secondly, we're very happy to allow people to ask questions themselves. So if you'd like to do that using the audio, so if you'd like to do that, then please raise your hand and I will unmute you. When I unmute you, you will receive a notification asking if you would like to talk, and then you accept that. If you don't accept that, then I'm afraid you can't talk. So if we don't get round to you, then we'll try and get round to you on the Q&A anyway. So without further ado, so Nick, just to kick things off, let's go straight into the deal. And this question here is, this looks like an enormous amount of cash as part of the deal. Please, could you go into more detail on this and how it's all to be structured?
Look, it is a very significant transaction, as I said at the outset. So the way it's structured is that Anglo will take an effective, once this is signed, an immediate 70% controlling interest in all of the tenements that we have, other than the little small-scale caliber plant that we've separated out, which I think you're aware of. They have done this with a clear focus in mind, and that is to
control the whole environmental, social, community agenda, and I think their practice is to do this wherever they can, and that's absolutely fine, and we understand why they want to do that. But of course, to maintain that 70%, they have to then invest as set out in the press release today. The $88.5 million, which is phased for the first 51%, which is they will have to spend $24 million, and an upfront payment of cash of $3.5 million to ARC, and then annual payments thereafter of $1 million each year, and then at the end of that first period of 3 years, a further $8 million is payable in cash to ARC, and then the phase 2 option follows, which to go from 51 to 60, so an additional 9%, they have to invest a further $20 million into the ground, and then lastly, for the last 10% to get from 60 to 70, they've got to invest a further $30 million. So, very, very significant amounts of investment going into the ground, which, as I've said, is exactly what we want and need, because it's quite clear that any company coming in with this sort of quantum, must have a pretty clear vision of what might be there, and that's always what we've suspected. We've always said that this is one of the best sort of undeveloped copper terrains, frankly, in Central and probably all of Africa, that remains. So extremely exciting.
Thank you, Nick. Just to keep on a similar theme to exploration and terrain, we've had multiple questions on operations, drilling campaign, when Anglo is going to start drilling, is drilling planned, when's it going to commence, what the extent is going to be, what are the plans for drilling this season. I think pretty much everyone who's sent in a list of questions has started with something there. So I think addressing those first would be great, please.
Sure. Look, so the timeline to finalize the various agreements, and these will be things like working out potential dilution formulas. If we're, for instance, not able to follow our funding, at the end of the whatever potential 7 years or earlier. In practice, I don't think that's an issue for us, because I think if indeed we get to that stage, that means we're sitting on something extremely valuable, and we will be able to fund either through our existing cash resources, which come partly through this transaction, but also, we would be able to I think raise any sort of money that we need to down the line if we're sitting on something that valuable, which I believe we are, by the way. So, but nevertheless, we do need to work out agreements that set out potentially how dilution formula works, and potential royalties that. So, but look, these are sort of boilerplate type of agreements that Anglo will have, and I'm sure we'll be presented with, and I don't think there's going to be too much negotiation, if you like, around those, because it's going to be, I think, reasonably straightforward. The heavy lifting and the due diligence in large part has all been done, and so with that in mind, we have obviously shared a significant amount of our historical drilling data with Anglo. They're very familiar with the data. As you know, we've completed all the sort of geophysics airborne survey results, and those look very encouraging and look to target, in particular, Chiesa and Muswema, and reiterate what our big targets there are. We obviously need to agree that still with Anglo. Their very senior geologist is up at site as we speak, with our chief geologist, Vasily. And so, we're absolutely all have the same goal in mind, which is to get into this and get onto the ground and start drilling as soon as possible.
Thank you, Nick. Next question. What are the agreed JV geographical areas, and what leases are with it, in it, and without it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, look, as I alluded to earlier, everything within our tenements, bar the small, I think it's 6 square kilometers around what is the Calabar plant, which as part of the settlement agreement we've divested from. So everything else is included.
Thanks, Nick. Next question. Could you please advise how the release of future drill data is likely to be managed and overseen by the ARC team in order to ensure timely and transparent updates?
Look, that's a very good question. We have raised that with Anglo. I have experience here with other companies that I'm on the board of, where we have a joint venture with a very large gold company. There isn't an issue here. I mean, they're very aware of our obligations as a public company to report on a regular basis drill results and drill data and so on. So there's going to be no shortage of news flow going forward.
Thanks, Nick. What is the 30% split in relation to Zako? Does that make sense?
No, I'm not sure what that means. So the Zako is included. As I say, all of our properties and tenements are included. So and we retain 30% of in the final instance, 30% of everything within the joint venture.
Okay. Whoever asked that question, if you want to outline a little further, if that didn't answer your question, then please do so. So what about Kupore? Will they still meet their share of the drilling costs?
They will. There's no issue there, and they're extremely, positive and pleased with this development. And again, I think, like everybody, they've been long invested and are really keen to see something material develop from here on.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Somebody has asked to speak, so Mr. Movasat, I've given you permission to unmute yourself if you'd like to. Okay, have you unmuted? No? Okay. Well, if you'd like to speak, you can. Does ARC have to cover any drilling costs or other costs of the JV? If so, what level is covered by ARC Minerals?
Sorry, I think the gentleman's on the line.
Hi, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi there. Congratulations on this deal. It's really amazing news for everybody. I just wanted to ask, what are you intending to do with the cash? Are we going to be spending this on Botswana?
Very good question. So, we will have quite significant cash resources going forward, which is an excellent position to be in. So yes, I mean, Botswana is very interesting.
Sorry, I'm going to mute you.
Botswana is very interesting, and that's sort of drill ready now. So we're going to get going on that over the next few weeks. We have also been offered potentially relatively modest but quite interesting other sort of exploration opportunities in Zambia, which we're looking at. So that could be another allocation of cash, but not in any sort of significant way. I think we need to digest this one first and get this under wraps. But Botswana is the most obvious one for allocating further capital.
Thank you, Nick. Does that answer your question?
It does. Am I allowed to ask one more, or
you are? If you put yourself on mute after you've asked the question, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Certainly. Nick, what's the immediate plans? Obviously, I know it's still very early stages in Zambia, but are we intending to? How many drill rigs do you plan to get out this dry season, and when?
Look, as I said, we're all keen, and I speak, I think for Anglo as well. We're all keen to get started as soon as possible. As I say, we've got joint teams up there this weekend. I can't at this stage identify specific targets. That would be wrong. And indeed, Anglo, I think, have a very clear vision of what they want to do. They haven't, for obvious reasons, shared that to date until obviously we've now signed. But look, they've indicated, as I say, that we want to get started now with the dry season starting. We want to get drilling as soon as we can. But the most obvious target, I think, in our view, certainly would post the airborne survey, would be that Chiesa East and Muswema areas. Those are the most logical and most opportunistic targets in our view. Now, they may take a slightly different view. We'll have to see.
Excellent, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. John Mayer, I think you can talk. Can we hear you?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Good. Look, this is the most extraordinary deal for a major to sign with a junior exploration company, and I haven't seen anything quite like this in my career, so well done. Nick, I'm not sure how much you can say, but could you talk us through some of the geological reasoning behind Anglo's coming in on this?
Look, thanks, John. And, look, I appreciate your comments. And I think this indeed, heralds a fantastic new chapter for ARC. And as you say, I think it's unprecedented, this sort of investment, which I think says volumes about what Anglo, I think, believe is there, and what we believe is there. I can't go into any detail in terms of sort of what their geological views are. I mean, obviously, this was a sort of fairly lengthy negotiation, and they played their cards fairly close to their chest in terms of, despite obviously us trying to eke out what they thought was there and what's interesting. So no, they haven't sort of enunciated anything like in terms of what particularly attracted them. But I think there is a sort of a video by one of their leading geologists, which has done the rounds on the web, which I think indicates quite clearly that they believe this to be a highly prospective area. And I think he was responsible for helping identify and develop Sentinel, was it Colin Bird's project, which was sold and obviously developed into a major mine. So, but other than that, I really can't sort of comment in any detail.
I'm just wondering whether they're looking for another Kamoa or it's more of a Sentinel type discovery that they're after.
I may be able to say more, John, as we sort of bang our heads together and work out the future. But at this stage, I couldn't comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. If you mute yourself, then I'd be very grateful. But if you have any further questions, then please don't hesitate to join in. Sorry, Nick.
And Sasha, no, I think there's a question that was directed to Remy.
Yes, I have that. It's very similar to one that's just been asked. So to Remy as the CFO, this JV and the terms, how good is it compared to others at our stage?
Hi, guys. Well, look, I think I've been pretty blunt in the past, and I remember my presentation at Indaba 2 years ago. And John covered it to some extent as well. There's never been a deal like this. So this amount of cash to the original shareholder and spending commitment, especially for an asset that doesn't have a JORC resource at this stage, it's unheard of. You pick private, public companies, TSX, ASX, it's never happened. The point of it all is for such a great company as Anglo to be basically committed to this kind of commercial terms is just telling you a lot about the conviction about the asset. I am not qualified to tell you whether we're sitting on a massive tier one asset. I believe we are, but clearly the guys who are the expert in this game, and I think the team at Anglo is probably the best in the across the entire industry, clearly seem to feel that we're onto something here, and that's really what the deal is telling you, more than the terms, which obviously are very good for us and put us in a great position in the short term and in the long term. It's more the fact that for Major to kind of commit to this kind of terms tells you the level of motivation about this grant, and that's really the key takeaway from it. But we yet to see a deal like this, and it's never happened before.
Thank you, Nick. Another question. Sorry, thank you, Remy. Apologies.
No problem.
Does the deal have the blessing of the Zambian Mining Ministry, and are there any further approvals required?
So I was in Zambia very recently and met with the Minister of Mines and various other government officials. No, it doesn't require any further government approvals. I mean, I think I'm not talking out of turn when I say that, they were absolutely delighted to hear of this proposed transaction and the fact that we've now signed this agreement. I know that this has been raised at various very high level senior meetings, government meetings, at the recent Indaba conference, where the president was present. So it's getting, shall we say, the highest level attention that we could have hoped for, and it is absolutely a very high priority deal for I think the government of Zambia. You've seen the good news on First Quantum that they announced recently, and I think there are other related type of transactions that are also going to be announced. And I think this is all part of the transformation of Zambia into really, what I've called before the Switzerland of mining, certainly in Africa. And the government has just been, I think, extremely supportive and transparent, and really from a governance point of view, is really turning the ship around, which is just, the best possible news that we could have hoped for. So in short, yes, they are extremely supportive, and I don't anticipate any issues there.
Thank you, Nick. Keep the questions coming in, please. So I'm just filtering through. A lot of these have been covered already. Covered as well. So Team Anglo, do they know where they want to drill, and do they feel confident, do you think?
I think we've covered this, yeah. They do. I think they've got a very clear idea of they've got one of the best regional teams here, and I think that just speaks volumes.
Okay, who's going to be operator, ARC or Anglo? What control will ARC still have over operational decisions? Will the ARC geological team be incorporated into the Anglo team?
So Anglo will be the operator. We will have a JV co where we have representation on the board. There'll be certain issues where will require ARC's required consent, which is above 80%, but otherwise it's by simple majority. So Anglo will then put through their whatever resolutions, etc., that need to be ratified. I have to say this, that I've been very impressed by what's, I guess, been close to a year of negotiation with Anglo, and their open approach, and also willingness to listen. This is a far cry from, frankly, any major that I've worked for, and indeed any discussions we've had with other majors. It really, I think, speaks extremely well to the team at Anglo. It was a very senior team, by the way, that we were involved with, and required very high level approval on Anglo's side. I have to say that the willingness to engage constructively with us was fantastic. And I think that's the basis of an excellent partnership. And I think I'm very confident. Whatever I always say, you should never regulate relationships through agreements, but of course one has to. But that's not the basis of a constructive joint venture. The constructive joint venture is really based on a constructive working relationship between individuals on both sides, and we've had that in spades to date. So I don't expect there to be. I mean, we may have disagreements from time to time, but I think, given the personalities involved, certainly I don't anticipate any sort of major confrontations or anything like that. So, but yes, Anglo will be the controller, an operator, but doing so in a sort of meaningful, constructive dialogue with us as their partner.
Thank you, Nick. Few questions on Botswana coming in, if you want to cover that at all. Here's another one. Sorry. So, Nick, you've been involved in big cap stocks before and know a lot of the bigger institutions. Have they reached out to you yet?
One very large, in fact, probably the largest player in the mining industry as an investor, yes, have reached out. This was some time ago. I think their desire was to sort of see, if we could really pull in a major here. So obviously that's one call I will be making post this announcement, and I think there'll be others. I mean, this is, particularly in this sort of febrile environment at the moment with markets where they are. I think to come into something like ARC with this sort of investment, the expertise, the prospectivity, the cash flow, to us, which obviously obviates any desire or need to raise cash, frankly, at any time going forward post closing this deal, I think is very attractive. I mean, this, if you look at comparative transactions which have turned into enormous companies that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, like the much fated Greatland Gold and so on. This could be very interesting for even a sort of small or medium-sized institution, or even a large institution coming in.
Thank you very much, Nick. Look, just to the audience here, the participants, if you did want to ask a question, then please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But meanwhile, I'll just carry on through the list. There are a lot of repetitive questions, though. But
I want to get to Botswana.
Yeah, I was just going to get onto that. There are 3 or 4 on Botswana. So one is, if you cover Botswana in general, but the first one is, what are the JV cash payments and incoming CASA monies as well going to be used for? Are you going to use this for Botswana work, or are you going to make other acquisitions in Zambia?
I think I've answered that. So, I mean, some of this will go into Botswana, although modest amounts. But we're quite excited by Botswana. I was there actually a few weeks ago, and again talking to the local geos and what we have in the KCB is actually extremely interesting. So I really can't wait till we get drilling there.
Okay, there's another one. Will our relationship with Anglo be of any value in Botswana, as they've been rumored to enter the neighborhood?
I saw that rumor. I don't know. I have no idea if that's accurate or not. I mean, what we do know is that it is a very interesting part of the KCB that we are part of. We're playing chess here, not checkers. So let's see. But Khomakau, which is where the rumor I think started, which is a very big, significant copper asset. We boarded that, which strategically I think is excellent. I know people were skeptical as to why we got involved, but let's see.
Okay, thank you, Nick. here's what are the brokers saying out there? Has there been any recent research coverage? Obviously, we've heard from John, who is delighted with the deal. But any further research coverage or anything happening?
Look, I think WH Ireland put out a note this morning, and I'm sure John will do as well. So those are the only two notes I'm aware of.
Thanks, Nick. There's a question, I think we started to cover it, but do ARC have to cover any drilling costs or any other costs of the JV? If so, what is the level covered by ARC?
No.
Okay. Sure. Are there any, in time, are there any further airborne geophysical surveys planned as part of the exploration work program?
Not currently, no.
Okay. Do we have a spending commitment ourselves, or is it a free carry up to 7 years?
No, it's a free carry for 7 years. No, I might add that can be fast tracked. So, if there was a significant intersection of something, and our partners wanted to move to 51 or 70 or whatever, before they had spent the requisite money, that can be fast tracked. So we're not bound by the 7 years. It could be done in, and I expect it, frankly, to be done in significantly less time.
Okay, if tier 1 status is confirmed through drilling in due course, is the expectation that Anglo will make an offer for 100% of ARC?
Look, I can't speak for Anglo, but the agreement is obviously at local level, and I think that's great, and that's normally the way majors do structure these. But nothing can be ruled out. But the important thing is we retain the 30% stake going forward, which by the way wasn't that straightforward to negotiate, because we really did want to, for ARC shareholders, allow them to have a very meaningful stake down the line, because a lot of these deals are done with sort of earnings that are very dilute and just leave shareholders with very little, and result in the entity ending up with 15 or 10, 15, 20% stake. So a 30% stake is meaningful.
Nick, there are quite a few questions from different people on the intricacies of negotiation with ARC and other players in the market and their reactions to it. Potentially, you can't go into something there, but if there's anything else you might want to touch upon there, then maybe that might cover what you'd like to.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
Okay, fine. So at what price would you now value ARC as a company following this announcement, and how do we go on to create value from here?
I think it's very dangerous to comment on valuation, but Remy, do you want to take that?
Yeah, well, look, I'm definitely not going to jump in and put a price on what I think is a fair value. But look, at the end of, there's one example in the UK market of a good quality JV with another major, and that's turned out very well. It was mostly gold, like a gold copper asset in Australia. But the way to look at it, the way I look at it, people do whatever they want, but we think we are now leaving this asset to be drilled and explored by the best team of geologists in the world for that given geology. Okay, so then, and the fact that they are putting those terms to us tells you that they themselves feel very confident about the likelihood that there could be something meaningful, and that's a major, by the way. They're not looking for a tier 3 asset; they're looking for a tier 1 asset. So if you look at the NPV of Sentinel next door, Kalumbila from FQM. If you look at the NPV of the Kamoa-Kakula stuff just up north in DRC, at this copper price, or even take a more conservative copper price, we're in the $5 billion plus NPV for those kind of assets. If going forward, Anglo managed to hit the mother lode and find an asset that is comparable to what we have next door or above us, that you have an asset that has an NPV of 5 billion plus. Okay, and then we have a 30% share of that NPV. We are free carried for 7 years, and then after that, in the meantime, we're getting the cash, which covers our pro rata share or whatever spending would have to be paid for after the free carry for quite a few years. So bottom line is we do not need to be diluted for a very long time. And if they hit the mother lode, it will happen way before. And so that's how you can project effectively what is the value to ARC down the line if indeed they find the mother lode. As of today, it's a case, and it's more of a personal comment, but it's a case of how much do you want to discount the likelihood of them finding the mother lode and you having a 30% shares of the NPV of that project further down the line. And look, I don't have the answer. It's still a bit, it's not perfect science, but that's definitely the approach I would take.
Thank you, Remy. What depth will Anglo drill to? Will the roads into the tenement areas be improved? And does the deal have the blessing of the local chiefs?
So dealing with all of those in turn, yes, we have been in active dialogue with Chief Saulunga, who's the chief part of that area that we operate in, and of course they're supportive. Why wouldn't they? I mean, this is a massive investment coming into what historically has been a very impoverished part of Zambia. The depth I can't answer. We'll have to see as to where Anglo are on that. I suspect it'll be marginally deeper than what we've been drilling at, given what we've seen to date. But really, it would be premature to go into that. And I forget. Sorry, the third question was.
The local chiefs, I think you've done. So what depth we've done?
Yeah.
The roads into the tenement areas.
The roads, yeah. So we're busy actually improving the roads ourselves as part of our CSR initiatives with the local chiefdom. There's the road to the first quantum operation. Kalumbila is very good. It's, some of you who've been out there know. Tarred and everything else. There's a stretch then from there to our tenement, which is some 30-40 kilometers, and that parts of that road are very poor, and so we're actually currently trying to upgrading that using local workforce. So that hopefully will be improved now that the rainy season is coming to an end.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for those questions who have submitted them. Okay, here's another one. What are Anglo and ARC doing by way of ESG in relation to this deal?
Well, look, that will, as I said at the outset, that with Anglo taking a 70% controlling interest from the outset, that really will then migrate over to Anglo's ESG teams. Obviously, we'll be there with them and be, indicating what we've done to date and where we think further work needs to be done. But that obviously is very high on their agenda as a good corporate citizen, and high on the Zambian government's agenda. So, I think we can expect, probably a more structured program than what we've put together to date, given the size of the player that we're with, which is all very good news.
Given the size of the deal, do we expect to have more rigs and drill holes per year than we've ever done before?
Well, of course, because as I say, I mean, if we get anywhere close to spending, whatever it is, certainly $8 million. If you look at the first phase of $24 million, that works out to sort of circa $8 million a year, perhaps more in 1 year. That comprises all of our expenditure to date over the last 4 years. So obviously, it's going to be a much more significant drill program that they will be delivering on.
Thank you, Nick. I'm just trying to. Okay, so what can shareholders expect going forward in terms of events and developments?
Look, it's a good question. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, this as we've said and as John has said, this is a very, very significant deal by any measure. So clearly there is going to be a lot of activity on the ground. There will, as a result, of course, be a lot of reporting of hopefully good drilling results from that on a regular basis. So that it absolutely is, front and center stage that ARC shareholders can look forward to. That is the game, and we're not sort of going to divert our attention from the big prize. So that is really what lies ahead. Of course, there are other developments that we're looking at, things like Botswana, as I said, and we're reporting back on that. But really, and potentially other what we think are quite interesting, potentially intriguing Zambian exploration assets, and I think you'll agree that we have a reasonable track record to date, although it's been a difficult 18 months. But we have been rewarded with an outstanding transaction. So we will be prudent. We will be continuing to look out for interesting transactions that we think make a lot of sense and add a lot of value, and be opportunistic. But we're not going to deviate from, as I say, the core strategy, which is to be in partnership with one of the largest mining companies in the world, and hopefully develop something very, very significant here.
Very good. Nick, could you please update on the recently announced Kazza deal? Is it still going ahead?
Yes, it is. So that's all on track. We, as it's been indicated, we will receive going forward both cash and shares in a soon to be listed vehicle. I think from as partner with an ex Friedland guy. So I think all that looks very interesting. They have already paid the license fees for the operation, for the license rather in the DRC, which I think again underscores their seriousness of taking this forward. So we could be, they could be sitting on as they start drilling a really quite interesting. We know there's just heaps and heaps of gold in Masisi, and it's really where they start, and so that could be very interesting. We did some drilling there ourselves, and we're pretty surprised by what we uncovered. But we simply couldn't develop both Zambia and the DRC simultaneously, and we thought the bigger opportunity at the time was Zambia, which I still believe it is. But we've got a serious player who's going to develop this, and we will be part of that through a modest shareholding in that company, and then we've received some stock in another company called Tingo, which I'm told is busy merging with another entity on the NYSE. So that could be quite interesting over the next few weeks as well.
Very good, Nick. So any other comments on going forward, what shareholders should look out for regarding the Anglo deal, and your final thoughts on it for today?
Good. Well, look, thanks, Sasha, for that. And I think I've covered all of the salient points. I'd like to thank our shareholders for being patient with us. We've come through a tough period, but we've been rewarded, I think, with an outstanding transaction. We have to go through the customary, what I call belts and braces, tidying up of the final agreements, but be in no doubt we are in a hurry as our new partner, to get going and to put rigs on the ground and as I say, hopefully identify what will be a very, very significant copper asset. So we will be cashed up in a very significant way. We have most definitely the best partner of any of the majors that have approached us in that area, as our sort of controlling partner to take this forward with us, with a very, very significant amount of capital being invested into the ground. And I think I just, as I said at the outset, I couldn't be happier, and this is an extremely good day for ARC, and I look forward to continuing the journey with all of our shareholders.